Hey everyone, welcome to the show. Ever feel like life's just one wild ride, throwing curveballs left and right? Like you never know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, that unpredictable feeling. Definitely.
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. A memoir that's seriously entertaining and let me tell you, unforgettable.
It's more than just a story, though, It's like a guide to dealing with the unexpected, all while keeping a good sense of humor.
Exactly. So we're unpacking the life of Jeff Swaney today. His book, None of the Answers, takes us on this incredible journey from blue-collar Detroit to global adventures and even entrepreneurial ventures. You won't believe some of the stuff that happened.
And it's not just about those crazy stories. You really see how he navigated the ups and downs, those inevitable twists and turns, and the wisdom he gained, sometimes the hard way. It's inspiring, really.
It makes you think about dreaming bigger, living a little more boldly, right?
Absolutely. It does.
So for this deep dive, we've got excerpts from the foreword by Ron Hall and different chapters from None of the Answers. We're going to extract the most interesting insights, those entertaining stories, and give you a taste of Swaney's incredible journey.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's jump in. Swaney kicks things off by saying he was hatched in the fall of 1958 in Detroit, the center of the universe back then, he says. But then he also calls it Murder City. What's with that contrast right off the bat?
It's interesting, right? He sets up this double image of Detroit, a powerhouse of industry and culture, but also facing some serious problems. Later, he talks about what led to its decline: protectionism, greed, the Peter Principle, racial injustice, and fear. You can sense right away that his life, even from the beginning, was going to be this mix of possibility and struggle.
And his family's story definitely reflects that. His grandfather, an Irish coal miner in Pennsylvania, then his parents, Polish Czech factory workers in Detroit. A hand-to-mouth existence, as he describes it. He even admits to feeling ashamed about his background sometimes.
Yeah, and that's something a lot of people can relate to. How we see our origins can change over time. At first, he felt this shame, maybe comparing himself to others. But then he comes to see this hard-working, resilient background as a source of strength. It reminds you that those who came before us, their struggles, their sacrifices, they shape our own resilience, even if we don't always see it that way at first.
Absolutely. Now, his father's childhood sounds like a world away. Growing up in Gallatin, a small town built around trains, he talks about this longing for something more glamorous. There's even this anecdote about Goonbates, a local character who collected cigarette butts, and the mystery surrounding how he lost his arm.
Right, and these glimpses into his father's life hint at this desire for something beyond limitations. This theme pops up again later in Swaney's own constant pursuit of adventure. Goombates. It's a small detail, but it adds this layer of folklore, those quirky or even tragic elements that exist in every community.
It's those little details that bring it to life. Now, what about his mother? Felician Academy in Detroit, her role as a stepdaughter, basically a housekeeper.
Yeah.
And this surprising sarcastic humor he mentions, she didn't even have a proper birthday celebration until she turned 70. What's that tell you?
It paints a picture of a woman who probably had to be incredibly tough, maybe even a bit self-effacing. Not getting recognition for something as simple as a birthday, it suggests her own needs weren't prioritized. But that sarcasm, that's her strength shining through, a way to cope. It reminds you that strength can be subtle and humor can be a powerful tool when things are tough.
So true. Okay, now on to Swaney's own childhood. Sounds like there was plenty of mischief, broken bones, concussions, and this great story about Bingo the dog.
Yeah, active kid. You can tell from those stories that he was curious, maybe even a bit of a risk taker from an early age, almost like he was testing the limits, physically exploring the world around him. And that kind of foreshadows his later adventures, don't you think?
Definitely see that. But then there's this intense experience he describes, forced memorization of Martin Luther's catechism. He calls it torture, but it ends up giving him this near-perfect photographic memory.
Right, and that's the crazy thing. Sometimes these tough experiences can have unexpected benefits. What felt like torture actually gave him this amazing skill. Makes you think, are there challenges in your own past that might have unintentionally given you strength or an ability you didn't realize at the time?
That's such a good point. Okay, what about his extended family?
Well, it's a mixed bag, like most families.
Yeah.
His dad had this fun-loving side, especially through his Uncle Sonny, the Irish Pennsylvanian Yogi Berra. But his mom's family, their visits were more like a dreaded, dutiful, biweekly requirement, strained relationship with his father, and this bizarre tradition of chasing him with a giant plastic hypodermic needle.
Oh, wow, that needle story.
He blames that for his lifelong fear of needles. It's funny, But also kind of disturbing, right? I mean, it really highlights how complex family dynamics can be. You've got this joyful influence on one side and then tension and even weirdness on the other. It probably shaped his view of relationships, teaching him about both the good and bad that families can bring.
So true. Now let's talk about a turning point. His transfer to Miss Hildebrand's advanced class in elementary school. This seems to have been huge for him. That's when he discovered his love for reading The Learning Tree. Vonnegut, Huxley. He says she supercharged his appetite for adventure.
This shows you just how powerful a good teacher can be. Miss Hildebrand saw his potential, and by introducing him to these books, she opened up whole new worlds for him, sparked that curiosity, that desire to explore beyond his immediate surroundings. Makes you think about the teachers and mentors who've influenced you, right?
Yeah, it makes you appreciate them. And it wasn't just reading. From age 7, he was already working different odd jobs, door-to-door sales. He learned about rejection and actually became a successful salesman. He realized early on that money was a primal bare necessity, because of his parents' struggle.
Right. That early exposure to work gave him this understanding of effort,
Yeah.
resourcefulness. Dealing with rejection so young, that's a valuable skill, especially for an entrepreneur. And realizing money wasn't a luxury but a necessity, it probably fueled his ambition. It's a reminder that even those first jobs, they teach you important life lessons.
Makes sense. Now, there's this story about a Prudential insurance salesman when he was 14. He challenges the guy over a policy his parents couldn't afford. They're embarrassed at first, but it actually reinforces his ability to discern truth from bullshit, as he puts it.
Yeah, that story shows his developing character, doesn't it? He's questioning authority, standing up for what he believes in, even at that age, even when it's socially uncomfortable. It's a key moment for his independent spirit. It makes you reflect on times you might have questioned the status quo and how it affected your own self-reliance.
Interesting. Now, like many teenagers, there was a brief experiment with smoking,
Ah, yes.
which ended rather abruptly with some self-induced aversion therapy.
Sometimes you got to learn the hard way.
It's funny, but relatable.
Yeah.
Sometimes those direct consequences, even if they're a bit extreme, they can be surprisingly effective. Personal experience trumps abstract warnings.
For sure.
Okay, so there's a big moment of redirection for him. The Bicentennial USA. He was so excited to participate, planned it all out with his friend Mark, but ultimately decided to stay behind and work to prepare for college.
Yeah, that's a tough decision. You see a level of maturity there, though, recognizing the importance of long-term goals like education, even when there's this tempting adventure right in front of you. He understood responsibility and the idea of delaying gratification. It's something we all deal with.
Definitely. Okay, college time. He picks MSU, Moo U, as he calls it, over U of M. Partly because of a fear of failure and, not feeling supported by his family. His parents weren't exactly encouraging on the drive to MSU. How do you think that lack of support affected him?
Probably made him feel like he had something to prove, leading to insecurity, but also a stronger determination to succeed on his own. Choosing the easier path, it might have reflected those anxieties he was feeling. It shows how family dynamics, they can stick with you even when you're trying to be independent.
Right. It's never easy to completely break free. Now, his first year at MSU sounds pretty typical, parties, the whole college scene. He even mentions the mass shooting that happened there later, which adds this really somber layer to those memories.
It's a chilling reminder that tragedy can strike anywhere, even in places that seem safe and fun. It adds a weight to those memories, doesn't it?
It does. Now, those summer jobs during college were pretty intense. Budwheel Company, he compares it to Upton Sinclair's The Jungle. Dangerous conditions, crazy heat. He actually passes out on the job.
Wow, that sounds brutal.
It was. It wasn't just about the money for him. It was this brutal introduction to really tough labor, unsafe conditions. Definitely solidified his desire for a different kind of life and the importance of finding work that aligns with your values.
Absolutely. It shows how confronting those difficult realities can really clarify your own aspirations.
Right. Then there was the job retrieving phones from abandoned houses in Detroit.
Hmm.
Super surreal and dangerous, running into squatters, drug users. His employer even warns him, "It's a jungle out there, don't push your luck, I want you back safe."
Yeah.
He starts dressing like a bum to stay safe.
Crazy, right? That job gave him this glimpse into the darker side of things. Urban decay, the struggles some people face. Changing his appearance to survive, that's quick thinking, resourcefulness. It's a reminder that there are so many different realities within a city.
And the dangers you might not even think about. Okay, now for something a bit lighter. He had this pot delivery business with his friend Joe during college. Sounds like he was embracing the Mr. Party Central persona.
Yeah, shows his entrepreneurial side, doesn't it? He saw an opportunity and went for it. Embracing that persona, it suggests he was socially adept, good at connecting with people, and willing to take risks, explore different ways to make money, and, well, have some fun.
Definitely. But then there's this more serious experience. Visiting his friend Mike in jail, trading his sunglasses and watch for protection, really brought home the reality of prison life. He realized he never wanted to be in there.
That visit was a wake-up call, for sure. Seeing the loss of freedom, the harshness of prison, it was more powerful than any warning. Reinforce his desire to stay on the right side of the law and the importance of the choices you make.
Big time. Now, during all this, his parents divorced. Surprisingly, he was pretty civil. More relief than sorrow. He even finds himself supporting his mother.
It sounds like there might have been underlying tension for a while. Him stepping up for his mom, it shows maturity, a shift in their dynamic. It also suggests resilience within the family, even with this big change happening.
And even amidst all the craziness of life, he was studying engineering. Initially, really struggled with calculus, but then it just clicked, and he started to appreciate it.
I think we've all had those moments, right? When something finally makes sense after you've struggled with it. It's rewarding. Shows the importance of sticking with things, that satisfaction of overcoming a challenge.
For sure. Now, there's a major turning point in his thinking. He comes across Einstein's philosophy. Imagination is more important than knowledge. This leads him to reevaluate his path, realizing he's an artist trapped in a businessman's body, as he puts it.
That's a big realization, right? Recognizing the power of imagination, creativity, it probably freed him to consider more possibilities. It's about aligning your outer life with your inner passions. Makes you think, are you truly honoring your own creative side?
Such a good question. Now, he gets a summer job in Montana. Total contrast to that gritty Detroit phone job. He's blown away by the Rocky Mountains, the majesty of the Beartooth Highway. He finds this escape in pure nature. What do you think about that?
That experience seems to have been really powerful for him, discovering this love for nature, finding peace and perspective away from the city. For a lot of people, nature is a way to recharge, reflect, connect with something bigger.
It's essential. Now, he also gets some pretty direct feedback from a friend. He's told to dial everything way down. That's got to be tough to hear, but important.
It is. That kind of honesty, even if it's blunt, it can help you grow. Learning to manage your intensity, how you come across, those are valuable skills. It's about self-awareness and being open to constructive criticism, even when it's tough to hear.
Got to be open to it. Okay, graduation time, big decision. A trip around the world. He gets a near 3.0 GPA and decides to travel solo with very little money. His parents have very different reactions. His mom, understandably worried, but his dad's surprisingly understanding.
Yeah, you see the different ways parents can react, right? Mom's worried about his safety, which is natural. But his dad's understanding, maybe it's because he recognizes his son's adventurous spirit, or maybe even a bit of himself in those desires. But for Swaney, this trip was about independence, experiencing the world firsthand.
So, his global adventures begin with a flight to Hong Kong on World Airways. He calls it a B-movie experience, flying on this ancient plane. And then the immediate shock of Hong Kong, the intense contrast between poverty and wealth.
Talk about being thrown into a different reality. It must have shattered any expectations he had. Seeing that kind of disparity up close, it can be jarring, but also eye-opening.
Definitely. His first youth hostel in Hong Kong sounds awful. Dark basement, rickety bunk beds. He gets out of there as fast as he can. Sometimes you just got to trust your gut.
Absolutely. He recognized that the situation wasn't right, and he got out. It shows his instincts, his self-reliance. Sometimes the best decisions are the ones that prioritize your well-being, even if it means changing plans.
Right, you got to listen to those instincts. Now, remembering his Detroit phone job, he actually smears mud on his backpack and clothes so he doesn't look like an easy target. It's interesting how those past experiences, even if they seem unrelated, can help you in new situations.
It shows his adaptability, right? He takes a lesson from one context and applies it to another. Practical intelligence, awareness of his surroundings, survival skills on a global scale.
Pretty impressive. So he gets lost in Hong Kong, it's sensory overload, but he ends up connecting with some local workers in an alley. They share food and beers, even though they don't speak the same language. He talks about choosing the harder path to toughen himself up. What do you think about that?
That moment of connection, despite the language barrier, it's beautiful. Shows you that human kindness is universal. And his choice of the harder path, it speaks to personal growth, wanting to overcome obstacles. Sometimes pushing yourself outside your comfort zone is the best way to learn and grow.
I agree. Visiting his friend Ken and his family in Japan, that was a different kind of cultural immersion. The food, amazing, but totally unfamiliar. Ken's mother trying to explain things with mime-like gestures. Travel really expands your horizons in unexpected ways.
It does. Sounds like a funny and heartwarming experience. You never know what you'll encounter when you travel, and those unexpected moments are often the best ones.
So true. He even tries to connect with the supernatural at the Zen garden in Kyoto, doing yoga poses, breathing exercises, but nothing happens. Sometimes those profound moments are elusive.
It's a reminder that you can't force those kinds of experiences. They happen when they happen. But it's great that he was open to exploring different aspects of culture and spirituality, even if it didn't go as planned.
Okay, on to Hawaii. He ends up in a sketchy YMCA in Honolulu. Total opposite of the amazing hospitality he receives from Jim Nabor's Gomer Pyle staff. He gets to experience this incredible estate, a 5-star Hawaiian buffet. Talk about extremes.
Right. The rundown YMCA versus this luxurious estate. It shows how unpredictable travel can be, and also the kindness of strangers. Sometimes those amazing experiences come from unexpected places.
Definitely. He goes on a boar hunt in the Hawaiian jungle, which sounds terrifying, then hitchhiking and sleeping in parks on the Kona coast. And this is a really inspiring visit to Kuhanua Wahānau Park.
He wasn't just a tourist, he was really engaging with Hawaii, seeking out both adventure and moments of peace. He was open to the full spectrum of experiences, the good and the bad, the beautiful and the challenging.
I love that. Meeting his dad in California and driving back to Detroit in his old car, that sounds like a turning point in their relationship. Tense car ride, his dad's emotional reaction, a stop at a Henry Ford historical marker. It all leads to a closer bond.
That car ride must have been something else. Being in that confined space, having that shared purpose, it probably allowed for a real connection. The tension might have even opened the door for deeper conversation. His dad's reaction suggests a breakthrough. It shows how shared experiences, even difficult ones, can bring people together.
Powerful stuff. Now, Europe's next. Hitchhiking in Britain, he gets some interesting rides, including one with a wealthy guy who owns a castle. Then there's this hilarious camping mishap in England involving a very curious bull. Travel is full of surprises, right?
It is. You never know who you'll meet, what you'll encounter. The bull story, that's classic. It adds this element of absurdity to his adventures.
Makes you wonder how he kept getting himself into these situations. He keeps hitchhiking through Europe, having more encounters of the ridiculous sort, as he puts it. One particularly strange experience at a French farmhouse.
Sounds like his European trip was a wild ride. All those crazy encounters, they probably gave him a unique understanding of human nature and the sheer variety of experiences out there.
Definitely. In Italy, he's blown away by Florence, dives into the underground nightlife, even gets mugged. Thankfully, his money belt saves him. It's a reminder that you have to be careful, even in beautiful places.
Florence, it sounds like it left a lasting impression. But yeah, the mugging, it's a reality check. Even in amazing places, you can't let your guard down.
So true. Then there's Turkey. Incredible hospitality in Cappadocia, but then he gets hit with severe dysentery and has this awful bus ride to Austria. Travel can be pretty intense.
It can. The generosity he experiences in Turkey and then this debilitating illness and tough journey, it shows the highs and lows in travel. Things can change quickly, and you have to be prepared for anything.
Absolutely. He recovers in Austria, thanks to a kind woman. Then it's Germany, and a spontaneous decision to illegally cross into the USSR, posing as Danes, a near run-in with the KGB, and eventually getting permanently exiled. That's a bold move.
Talk about pushing boundaries. It's a combination of curiosity, adventure, maybe even a bit of recklessness. The KGB encounter, the exile, they show the potential consequences of taking those risks, especially in politically charged situations.
Definitely a lesson learned there. So Norway comes after, and then he's drawn back to the U.S., specifically Boston. After all those global adventures, what do you think drew him back?
It's hard to say for sure. Maybe after all that chaos, he wanted some stability, something familiar, or maybe Boston offered an energy and opportunity that resonated with him after all that travel.
Makes sense. Now he moves to Dallas, Texas. A whole different vibe from Detroit. Gets a car, feels a calling. He even connects the Kennedy assassination to his 5th birthday party, a personal link to history.
That's interesting, right? The move to Dallas signals a fresh start, a new environment. And the connection to the Kennedy assassination, even if it's indirect, adds another layer to his experience in that city.
It does. He embraces Dallas culture, becoming a hardcore Cowboys fan, starts a successful sales career, but admits he had no interest in saving anything until his 30s.
Sounds about right for someone in their 20s. Enjoying the present, not necessarily thinking about the future, it's a common thing, prioritizing experiences over financial security.
And he had some interesting encounters. Meets HP's COO, Dean Morton, and gets offered a Stanford MBA. He turns it down. What do you think about that?
That's a big decision. Maybe he had other plans, didn't want to go back to school, or maybe he preferred a less traditional path. He clearly had a strong sense of what he wanted.
And get this, he even provided computer cables to a young Mark Cuban.
Wow, that's a glimpse into the early days of a tech giant. Shows you how random connections can lead to big things. You never know who you'll cross paths with.
So true. Now he starts throwing these legendary warehouse parties, creating this unique world, a home-cooked version of pop culture as he describes it. Then the fire marshal shuts one down.
Sounds like he had a talent for creating memorable experiences, pushing the boundaries, Getting shut down by the fire marshal is almost a badge of honor in those circles.
It adds to the legend. This all leads to Club Clearview, an underground nightclub he opens with his partner Steve. He really emphasizes the staff, the entertainers, the loyal patrons, especially Clay's artistic contributions to the club's atmosphere.
It sounds like Club Clearview thrived because it was different. It fostered a sense of belonging. He recognized the importance of the people, the community aspect. Clay's art, it probably made the club visually unique and immersive, which keeps people coming back.
Definitely. But running a club, it wasn't all smooth sailing. Dealing with the neighborhood, a flooded stage with a live electrical wire sounds dangerous.
It was. Those incidents show you the unpredictable nature of running a business. Things happen, you have to think fast, be committed to keeping everyone safe.
And they get evicted, but then reopen in a new location, complete with a red neon sign. They start booking reggae bands, there's a gun on the table incident, and they even host all-night parties for Pink Floyd and Oliver Stone's JFK rap party.
Club Clearview becomes this counterculture hub. Hosting those big events, it solidified their reputation as a significant venue in Dallas.
Lisa Oldham joins the team and books Green Day early on. They have all sorts of events. Miss Galaxy Fashion shows a Brothers Grimm freak show. It becomes a Dallas trendsetter, even getting recognition from Stanley Marcus of Neiman Marcus.
It was more than just a club. It was this melting pot of creativity and unconventionality, embracing different forms of expression, attracting local eccentrics and big-name artists. That's what made it so influential.
Totally. Now, outside the club scene, he also gets involved in the community. Mentors, a drifter named Johnny, joins boards to address homelessness, even encounters NIMBism.
Yeah, shows his compassionate side, wanting to make a positive difference beyond business. The NMBism, it's a common obstacle when trying to address social issues. It's a reminder of how complex these things are.
It is. He makes another big decision when he turns down a huge investment offer from Blake. What do you think was behind that?
It suggests he valued his independence, his control over the club's vision. Maybe he didn't want to compromise its character with a big outside investment.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Now here comes the drama. A police raid at the club. He ends up defending a barmaid, gets arrested,
Right.
and finds himself in the same police station where Jack Ruby shot Lee Harvey Oswald. He even meets Timothy Leary. Talk about a surreal night.
It's wild how those random events can connect you to history. His instinct to protect his staff landed him in this bizarre situation.
Crazy, right? Okay, after the club era, he tries a multi-concept business in North Dallas. Starts strong, but ultimately fails due to mismanagement, bad location, and competition, as he says.
It's a reminder that failure is part of the journey, especially in business. You learn from those setbacks, gain wisdom for future decisions. It shows his resilience that he was willing to try new things and learn from those experiences.
Totally. He sells the building, navigates a difficult partnership, and then starts networking with Dallas movers and shakers. Negotiates with George and Dan, learning about different business styles and the importance of avoiding prolonged conflict.
It's a skill to be able to work with different personalities. Understanding their motivations, communication styles, knowing when to compromise, when to stand your ground, avoiding unnecessary conflict, that's key for any collaboration.
So true. Then he founds Delphi, a real estate guidance company, solving the real estate puzzle, as he calls it. His early clients include the RTC and FDIC, and he ends up buying property in Old East Dallas with another tie to Jack Ruby.
Delphi sounds like a successful move for him, using his skills in a new industry. And the Jack Ruby connection, it's interesting how that keeps popping up.
It is. Now, he ends this section with some deep thoughts. The interconnectedness of souls, the power of collective focus, controlling your own actions and attitude. He talked about self-esteem, letting go of negative emotions, sharing values without being preachy.
It shows his personal growth, a shift to a more mindful way of living. Recognizing the importance of inner control, letting go of negativity. These are lessons he's learned through his experiences.
Definitely. Now, more adventures come, intense wilderness trips in Big Bend, almost dying from bad chili and dehydration. Scary flights where the plane almost runs out of fuel. Another near-death experience in Africa from a suspected heart attack.
He lived life on the edge. Those close calls, they change your perspective, make you realize how precious life is, appreciate each moment. You start to focus on what really matters.
Right. Now, his relationship with Sally and her psychiatrist sounds like a whole other story.
Yeah, a bit complicated.
But then, at 49, he meets his future wife. They get engaged, married, have a European honeymoon. His daughter, Cosette, is born. He becomes a dad.
Finding love and starting a family later in life, it's special. All those experiences beforehand, they add depth and gratitude to those relationships.
It is. But sadly, their relationship faces huge challenges. His wife struggles with addiction, they go through a tough divorce, and he's kept from his children. He talks about this painful experience at the children's stop.
That's a heart-wrenching chapter. Addiction can be devastating for families, and divorce and custody battles are incredibly painful. The children stop, that just underscores how difficult it is for everyone involved.
It does. He eventually wins a court date for more parenting time, helped by a nanny's testimony. He finds support through Al-Anon and starts sharing his story. Then comes the devastating discovery of documented neglect and abuse of his children during his ex-wife's temporary custody.
It's unimaginable what he went through. Fighting for his children despite all that, attending Al-Anon, sharing his story, those were lifelines. The neglect and abuse, it's heartbreaking. It shows how important his advocacy for his children was.
It was. He eventually gets sole custody, but faces the challenge of those long drives to Oregon to be with them. Despite everything, he talks about gratitude, cherishing the bond with his daughter, even through simple things like cooking together. He gets rid of material possessions, finding it liberating. He even forgives his mother and mother-in-law.
That's powerful. Finding gratitude amidst those struggles shows incredible resilience. Forgiveness of others and himself, it's a step towards healing. Letting go of material things, it symbolizes shedding the past.
It's about focusing on what truly matters. Now, he also talks about navigating the COVID pandemic, which is a whole other challenge for everyone.
It was a time of uncertainty and change for everyone, and it's no surprise it impacted his life as well.
He reflects on the future, AI, the environment, the value of human life. He talks about interviewing Abby Hoffman and the importance of righteous service. His children's love for Hopeview and nearby Kickett Island with its intriguing history. And ultimately, finding peace and thriving as humanimals. What do you think about that concept?
It's an interesting idea, humanimals. It suggests a harmony between our human nature and our connection to the natural world. It seems like he's found a way to embrace both, and that's where he finds peace and purpose.
And he doesn't shy away from talking about mortality, especially as he sees more funerals in this stage of life. He reflects on growing up feeling different, his ability to adapt, and this idea of love all, serve all, inspired by Isaac Tigrit.
It's a powerful philosophy, and it seems to be guiding his life now.
He's learned the importance of patience, especially through those court battles. He talks about living life full steam all the time, learning from experiences and sharing them. He even mentions the abundance of self-help advice and how he prefers real-life experiences. What do you make of that?
I think he's saying that true wisdom comes from living, from making mistakes, from facing challenges head-on. It's not just about reading advice, it's about getting out there and experiencing life.
So true. He describes his religion as personal freedom and connecting with nature, inspired by John Muir. He doesn't chase wealth or fame. He finds fulfillment in aligning his life with his passions.
It's a simple but profound approach to life, finding joy in the everyday, in the connections with nature and the people around you.
And he doesn't forget those early experiences. He talks about his post-travel corporate job selling computers.
Even those seemingly mundane experiences shape who we become.
And in the end, it's about finding love in nature, in friendships, in the simple things. He encourages readers to explore, live freely, but responsibly. What a journey.
It's an incredible story, full of twists and turns, highs and lows. And in the end, it's a reminder that life is about the journey, not the destination. It's about embracing the unexpected, learning from every experience, and finding your own path.
Absolutely. So there you have it, a deep dive into Jeff Swaney's None of the Answers. We hope this glimpse into his life inspires you to reflect on your own journey, to embrace the unexpected, and maybe even pursue your dreams with a little more boldness.
What stood out to you the most in Swaney's story? Have you had any similar wild experiences? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And as Swaney's life shows us, there often aren't easy answers, but the journey itself, with all its chaos and beauty, is what truly matters. What unanswerable question in your own life might hold the most valuable lessons? If you'd like to learn more about Jeff Swaney, you can find his website and social media links in the description below. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks, everyone.